Have you ever been haunted? It's a feeling of unease, fatigue, and drowsiness always weighing on your shoulders. There's a lethargy that derives from having to filter deaths continuously. The effects of living a filtered reality are similar to being stuck in a dream where you never know what's authentic or deceptive. It's a nightmare and a paralyzed reality of who we are. This is especially true as a young diaspora in this search for news and media that truly represents what is happening in your country of origin. By using the Somali word Biyaha to convey a Haitian understanding of an underwater resting place, the title illustrates the Pan-African connection between our practices. The Somali term Biyaha is a translation of the Creole concept of en bas de l'eau, meaning that one has sunk beneath the waters. In Haitian mythology, en bas de l'eau is considered to be the watery grave where ancestral spirits want to rest during the crossing of the Middle Passage. En bas de l'eau is also linked to the Creole term rat bas de l'eau, referring to the diasporic experience of being established somewhere other than your home country. This mural is the first work encountered by visitors as they enter the space. It's a world where we wanted to showcase rest as power. What does it look like to see Black bodies simply resting in a larger-than-life landscape? They are not fighting, agonized, or dead. We have chosen to depict important historical figures from both of our cultures. Jean-Jacques Dessalines was a general that led Haitians to freedom and the very first ruler of the country in 1805. Mahmoud Harbi Fada, the vice president of French Somaliland, now Djibouti, initiated the Pan-Somali movement in the 1950s. These impactful leaders fought for the freedom of our ancestors and subsequently ours. But we forget that these idealized heroes were also humans and needed to rest. As we keep fighting the same fight they did, we link our subconscious to theirs by illustrating members of our own families sleeping nearby. The souls of those we have lost and continue to lose in these battles are illustrating as shadows throughout the piece. This underworld in which the bodies are resting showcases an inner battle that comes from confronting painful images of our people, evoking a rise of emotions of compassion, fatigue, and numbness. Construction materials like metal scaffolding are included in the composition, creating an industrial-looking landscape to enforce the idea of man-made and the weight attached to this fatigue. Certain surreal elements are also included to allude to the absurdity fundamental to dreams. Just like this underworld, historically the sufferings of our ancestors' bodies were often man-made, created by the perpetrator. This industrial landscape is symbolic of the unfair dynamic towards our people. The resting bodies are stuck in this nightmare. It's not a casual rest, but rather a necessary rest. This mural showcases the pure and joyful communion of a family on a beach, offering a visual counter-narrative that serves to humanize migrant families. There's been a disproportionate digital consumption of Black pain and grief throughout 2020 and 2021. This mural brings back an important sense of normalcy to our community and offers the viewer an instant sense of warmth. The use of wheat pasting in this mural bridges our studio practice with the nature of street art. This speaks to the activist and political history of wheat pasting and how it has given a voice to marginalized communities for decades. We went through each other's archives and talked about our memories of family, feasting, and happiness. We explored our distinct ideas around healing. We wanted to create a work that would speak directly to our Black audience and invite them to feel at peace. The water as a gateway to healing seemed particularly intrinsic to both of our diasporic identities. My family had a playful relationship with water, describing it as a window towards an escape. By contrast, as a descendant of slaves from the transatlantic trade, Laurena Finéus was taught to fear the water and the many souls it still holds of her ancestors. Our title, Nagpadlo, is a Creole phrase that stands for both promise and peril, hope and despair when speaking to the journey of Haitian migrants coming to North America. They often died at sea, and for those who did make it to the foreign land, they were welcomed by waves of xenophobia that continues today. Those who make up the current population are memorialized in the media as dead bodies invading precious touristic shores, serving as a radical action to reclaim space and showcasing a reality centering Black joy instead of touristic pleasures and fun. We physically carved out inhabiting tourists from the pristine shores of touristic beaches. The organic nature of what looks like to be a gigantic collage is aiming at giving our viewer an intimate and private look into this moment of pure freedom. It is through our time spent with our loved ones that we can heal and demonstrate joy that is separate from the filter of violent images and media references provided in the digital space. Every child of color goes through an obsessive phase online, which is supported by the evident lack of media representation. These children want to understand what they are different and cannot look like the majority. This initiates an elaborate deconstruction of identity, beginning from an early age. Of course, concepts of race and concepts of racial identity are difficult for children to understand and identify. For children of immigrants, discussions and understandings of race are either brief or avoided. In reality, race can only be explained through lived experiences. Children can sense and compare experiences of being racialized and are aware that they are unlike others. These childhood portraits aim to illustrate this concept of being othered. The mural is a way to reflect the dissociation that begins to occur in minds of Black children when they become increasingly aware of the disturbing images of their communities online and in the media. These portraits also served as an exercise for us as artists to get back in touch with our younger selves, providing ourselves with a sense of empathy that was never received. American author Zora Neale Hurston's description is relatable to many that, quote, "I feel most colored when I am thrown against a sharp white background," end quote. In early childhood, we are mostly surrounded by our community, people that look like us. However, it's when we enter institutions like preschools or kindergarten for the first time that we realize the differences in our appearance. There are real-life consequences to being exposed to these differences, which can be posed as ideals constantly from life and in the media. We might start to compare ourselves to these broken images of people like us, concluding that our bodies are othered. These self-portraits investigate the often linear white gaze. This early childhood awakening is when we start to experience moments of hypervisibility and invisibility as determined by white spaces. We want to examine this aspect of identity through our carved self-portraits made out of photos from our childhood albums. In this work, we had the power to construct how we perceive ourselves, showing a more vulnerable and personal aspect of us.